The living doll. Mimei, Ogawa. Replace the doll? The girl asked in surprise. Yes, the owner replied. You would become a living doll and sit in the display. Me, a doll. The girl's large dark eyes widened in amazement. Just imagine, the shopkeeper continued, how much attention the shop would get. You are undoubtedly far more beautiful than the doll. The shopkeeper wasn't joking. He seriously proposed that the girl work for him, as she had her own wishes and felt that any job was just a means to an end. She agreed to become the living doll decorating the store starting the next day. News of the living doll spread quickly, and soon people from all over town came to see her. The area in front of the fabric shop was constantly crowded. She's quite the beauty, isn't she? That blue kimono really suits her. These were the kind of comments exchanged by the onlookers. Some even imagined that living store displays might become a trend in the future. Before, the dolls that attracted customers were beautiful, but lifeless. They didn't smile or move. Since they were just dolls, no one expected them to do so. However, now that people knew the display was a real person, some tried to speak to the beautiful girl. But as she was part of the store's display, it was forbidden for her to engage in conversation. Still, when something amused her, she couldn't help but smile, and occasionally, she moved ever so slightly. In front of a fabric shop, a young girl stood, gazing intently at a beautifully dressed doll on display. The doll wore an exquisite kimono with a splendid obi, proudly observing the passersby. The girl thought to herself, if only I were that doll, how happy I would be, living peacefully every day without a care, admired by everyone who passes by. The shop owner, who had been watching her for some time, scratched his head thoughtfully. What a beautiful girl! But judging by her appearance, she doesn't seem to live a wealthy life. She's been staring at the doll for a while. I wonder if I could offer her a job, he thought. He approached her gently and tapped her on the shoulder. Startled, the girl turned to see the shopkeeper smiling warmly. What have you been thinking about for so long? He asked kindly. The girl hesitated, but then answered honestly, I was thinking, if I were that doll, I wouldn't know the hardships of the world. With such a beautiful face, I could live happily. I thought if everything went the way we wanted, there would be no unhappiness in this world. The kind shopkeeper laughed heartily. My dear, your face is far more beautiful than that doll's. If you would agree, I will give you the doll's kimono and even pay you a salary. How would you like to replace the doll starting tomorrow? He said with a smile. Replace the doll? The girl asked in surprise. Yes, the owner replied. You would become a living doll and sit in the display. Me, a doll. The girl's large dark eyes widened in amazement. Just imagine, the shopkeeper continued, how much attention the shop would get. You are undoubtedly far more beautiful than the doll. The shopkeeper wasn't joking. He seriously proposed that the girl work for him, as she had her own wishes and felt that any job was just a means to an end. She agreed to become the living doll decorating the store starting the next day. News of the living doll spread quickly, and soon people from all over town came to see her. The area in front of the fabric shop was constantly crowded. She's quite the beauty, isn't she? That blue kimono really suits her. These were the kind of comments exchanged by the onlookers. Some even imagined that living store displays might become a trend in the future. Before, the dolls that attracted customers were beautiful, but lifeless. They didn't smile or move. Since they were just dolls, no one expected them to do so. However, now that people knew the display was a real person, some tried to speak to the beautiful girl. But as she was part of the store's display, it was forbidden for her to engage in conversation. Still, when something amused her, she couldn't help but smile, and occasionally, she moved ever so slightly. Look, this doll is alive. Some marveled in wonder. Watching a living person is far more engaging than a lifeless doll. What a clever idea, remarked others. The silent, inanimate dolls were soon put away, and the reputation of the living doll grew with each passing day. At night, when the store closed, the girl would return to her lodging. Many people would call out to her along the way, but she had a firm goal in her heart and refrained from engaging in unnecessary conversation, walking swiftly along the road. One evening, under the light of the moon, she heard a gentle voice calling her from behind. It was so soft and kind that she stopped and turned around. There stood an old woman. "That blue really suits you. You're such a beautiful girl. But you don't seem to be from this town. What brought you here? Do you have anyone you know in this place?" the old woman asked. Feeling at ease with the elderly lady, the girl confided her story. "No, I am all alone in the world," the girl began. "When I lived with my mother, I was so happy. She loved me dearly. I never knew my father. He passed away when I was very little. I had an older brother, but when I was 6, he left home and we never heard from him again. Poor mother always wondered where he might be, even up until the day she died." The old woman, listening carefully under the moonlight, didn't miss a single word of the girl's story. "So, you've ended up without a home, have you?" the old woman asked gently. "Without a home?" The words hit the girl hard, filling her heart with sadness. The weight of that lonely phrase made her feel desolate. It was true. She had no home to return to now. In that moment, her long-held desire to find her brother grew stronger than ever. "When Mother passed away, I left my hometown to search for my brother. But during my travels, I used up all the money I had. Now, I'm working in this town so I can save up and continue my journey to find him," the girl explained. "That's admirable," the old woman said kindly. "But wandering aimlessly, hoping to run into your brother, won't make it easy to find him." The girl's spirits wilted under the moonlight like a delicate flower struggling against frost. "Grandmother, what should I do? How can I ever find my only brother in this world?" she pleaded. The old woman thought for a moment, then replied, "You must go where many people come and go and ask around. Tell them your brother's story. Someone might know. I'll take you to a place where you'll have a better chance. Tomorrow night, go to the bridge on the edge of town and wait for me there. I promise I won't lead you astray." The girl felt comforted by the old woman's kindness and, after saying goodbye, returned to her lodging for the night. The next day, as she prepared to work her final shift in the store, the girl felt a deep sense of melancholy. Every sight of the town filled her with a bittersweet sadness, knowing that this chapter of her life was coming to a close. The cloth shop owner was a light-hearted and interesting person. Although the girl had confided in only the old woman and the shop owner, it seemed the owner, wanting to help her find her brother, had told a newspaper reporter, as her story was soon featured in the local newspaper. Word of the living doll's story quickly spread throughout the town. That very day, a young man came to the shop saying, "I am her brother," and requested to see the girl. However, since they had been separated when she was a child, she could not remember his face. "Are you really my brother?" she asked, gazing intently at the young man with her beautiful eyes. "It's no surprise you don't remember me after 10 years. The young man replied, "But I still clearly remember little Yuka-chan's sweet face." He then explained, "I left home with a resolve not to return until I became a successful artist," and pulled out a photograph of their mother from his pocket to show the girl. "Not a day passed that I didn't think of Mother," he said, shedding tears. At that moment, the girl believed he truly was her brother. Her heart overflowed with a mix of joy and sadness, and she embraced him tightly, exclaiming, "Brother, brother. Oh, I finally found you. Mother, why did you have to leave us?" She then recounted how, if she hadn't met her brother that day, she would have been taken far away that evening by the old woman. Was it a one-eyed, white-haired old woman? Her brother asked. She might have been one-eyed. She was very kind, the girl replied. The shop owner and her brother, who had been listening to the conversation, were both shocked. If that old woman targeted you, you wouldn't have been able to escape. She's a dangerous kidnapper. Who knows how many accomplices she has? She would have sold you off at the harbor town. We must leave this place immediately. That night, the town's harbor gleamed red with lights, and the sounds of ship horns and other noises echoed through the town. In another direction, the blue-black mountains stretched endlessly beneath the bright, clear moonlit sky. On the vast plain, a woman, cloaked in a light blue kimono and her face covered by a pale pink cloth, rode a white horse led by a horseman, slowly heading toward the mountains. The horse was silent, the rider was silent, and the horseman was silent. The moonlight bathed everything in a soft, dreamlike glow, and they appeared like a painting on the endless plain. Suddenly, dark figures appeared, chasing after them. 2, 3 men, each holding a stick, shouted as they approached. Eventually, they caught up with the horse, blocking its path. "She's wearing a blue kimono. This is the woman. She won't escape," the pursuers shouted. The horseman was startled and looked at the men. "Where are you taking this woman?" One of them asked. "She cannot speak, and I am to take her to the temple at the top of the mountain by nightfall. She is supposed to become a nun by morning." The horseman explained. "Fine, but turn the horse around and head back to town," one of the pursuers demanded. As they reached the bridge at the edge of town under the bright moon, they saw the white-haired old woman waiting. "So, you thought you could escape without telling me?" The old woman growled angrily, pulling the woman off the horse and tearing away the cloth covering her face. With a terrifying gaze, she examined the figure. "Wait, this is just a doll. I asked for a living doll," the old woman shouted in fury. Everyone stared in shock at the lifeless doll before them. Meanwhile, the real girl had already left the town with her brother, disappearing far away.